All right, all right. Before we go ahead, I would like to speak a few littles about Aditya Deshbandhu. He is a senior lecturer in communications and digital media sociology at the University of Exeter, UK. He's the author of The Gaming Culture in India, with a forthcoming book, The 21st Century in 100 Games. He also edits the games and contemporary culture book series and has been writing the long-running weekly column Game On for Telangana Today for over 8 years. And our very special Ria Chopra documents India's internet generation in real time, from decoding Gen Z and online culture to shaping conversations in Vogue, The Hindu, The Indian Express, and many more. Her work sits right at the pulse of the internet age. Her portfolio career has taken from the Google HQ in California to global classrooms, cultural stages, and even the hot seat of KBC. That's Ria Chopra and Aditya for you guys. Over to you guys.
Uh, Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. I am in conversation with Ria Chopra, who many people consider to be the writer for Gen Z audiences on all things internet. Correct. Thank you for coming to Hyderabad Lit Fest.
Thank you so much, Aditya. I'm very glad you did not say voice of a generation, because some people have tried to introduce me like that. And I feel like it's such a huge thing to put on someone who's written just one book, but also there is so much to our generation, which is what I talk about in my book. So every time someone calls me voice of a generation, I know they've not read it. But thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time in Hyderabad as an adult. I've been here as a tourist a very long time back, and I've been having a lovely time in the city, and I'm so excited for today.
Okay. So thank you so much. You've said all the right things. You've told us you like Hyderabad, you like the weather. Perfect. So I think we can start off with an easy question,
Okay.
just to warm things up, right? So, Ria, I understand you write a lot, even other than the book, of course. You've written for things like The Hindu, you've written for Vice, you've written for a lot of mainstream places. So what exactly does writing mean to you? The reason I'm asking this question is because for a lot of people that you're writing about, Gen Z, people claim that this is the generation that reads the least.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to write for a generation as part of a generation that probably reads the least? No pressure though.
I've had some people ask me this question in a less polite way, which is that, why are you writing a book? You could just make a YouTube series or make some reels about it, and people are likelier to consume it then instead of actually reading a book. But I don't think this generalization that Gen Z is reading the least is essentially true. I think the truth also is that young people are desperate to see good media that represents them the way they want to be represented, which is why the few books and the few shows and movies that actually do Gen Z depictions well end up becoming global hits. The reason why maybe young people are reading less, and of course we can have the attention span talk later, it's also that life is so heavy now. We exist in a permanent state that some culture commentators like to call perma-crisis, which is that back-to-back, we've had a pandemic, we are seeing a global recession, we've seen political conservatism on the rise, we are seeing social conservatism on the rise. It's not a very good time to be a young person because you don't know what your career is going to be a few years down the line, because AI is going to take all our jobs away. So in that state, consuming media that you don't relate to at all probably feels like a joyless pursuit. I think the truth is a lot of us want to read and watch things that show who we truly are and help us put the world in perspective, because the world is so much right now, right? I don't want to call it a mess because I like life, but it's a lot. So I think perspective giving books, which is something that I've tried to do in mine, are actually what we need right now more than ever. There is so much stimulus, there's so much happening. This is my attempt to do that. I personally also love reading books that help me put life in perspective. And yeah, I think people are willing to read stuff where they see themselves being represented.
Thank you so much. I mean, I don't know how we go from perma-crisis, but thank you for that. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, the other day somebody was talking about how 2026 is the most difficult start to a new year ever, correct, with all things happening around us. Yeah. So let's move away a little bit from all things doom and gloom. So with the other writing that you do, right, a lot of it is mainstream writing. I'm guessing 800 words, 1200 words. You're writing for news sites, you're writing for newspapers, magazines, you're looking for topicality. What do you think about writing for a book, though? You know, the journey kind of shifts, right, from 1200 words to a whole book. How was that like?
I think the second I actually started writing the first chapter of my book, it was like those videos you see of a pet dog who's been tied up the whole time being set free in the field, right? I was like, I can write as much as I want. For years, I've had to restrict what I wanted to say to 800 words, 1200 words. I've begged my editors that you pay me for 1000 words, but let me write 1500 words. Like, that's okay with me. Even the short video essays that I make, they need to be 1.5, 2 minutes, otherwise Instagram won't push them. And then to suddenly be allowed to explore whatever curiosity I have and make the points I want to make without a restriction was a very, very lovely feeling at first. I realized though that it comes with things that you don't think of before, which is that in a 1,000-word piece, you can take 3 main arguments for the point you're trying to make, one example, some surface level engagement, and that's pretty much it. When you're writing a 10,000-word chapter about one specific thing that ties into your 80,000-word book, you can't not go deeper, and the deepest level of engagement with any topic is to go deeper within yourself in a very philosophical way, to look at how you look at the word, how we're looking at the word. Who am I as a person is actually the last question that when you dig deepest into any argument that comes out. So I actually look at this book as almost like a philosophy book. It's answering a lot of things that I couldn't answer in my essays because I just didn't have the space to do that. I loved it. I loved being able to go down a few rabbit holes in any chapter. If you've read the 4th chapter of my book, which is called What's in My Bag, it starts with a 3,000-word anecdote about the history of tote bags that has absolutely no bearing about the rest of the chapter. Like we could have taken it out and it would not have mattered to the argument I'm making. But I love doing it, I had the space to do it. Why not? Like, it's an interesting topic to talk about. So I think that free reign I had was a very, very fun experience. And Loki, this is not something I will ever be able to say online, but I don't feel like making short form content as much anymore because I've been spoiled a little bit. Like, I really, really liked the long form space, the sense of having that space and being able to examine and look at my own complex thoughts. So like I'm just not posting anymore. I'm like logged out a little bit now.
I think you took the title literally right there, right? But I mean, there you go, guys, right? Loki, tote bags, long form is the way to go. I mean, probably time for all of us to probably start writing some of that. Correct. Now, slightly more, a little bit about the book, right? This could have been a very different book, right, Ria? It could have been a fiction story about 2 people finding love on the internet and so many other things. Why exactly did you pick the form in which it is right now? Why non-fiction? What style? How did you arrive at that decision?
I've been writing nonfiction for a while. I got my start in journalism and I've written reported pieces for newspapers. Even culture analysis is essentially like a nonfiction writing. So I find that medium very enjoyable in the sense that it is real life, right? Like there is no metaphor, there is no story that people have to work their way through to get to the point. Like this is the point. I feel that sense of transparency that you share with the reader when you write nonfiction is important for me. A lot of people also call my writing very accessible or simple in the sense that I like to use language that is easy to understand and not jargon. So I also look at using nonfiction is also accessibility for me, basically. Like I'm saying it as it is. There is no story, no plot, no, parallels to work your way through. So I think for me that truthfulness is there. I also like researching a lot. I enjoy it. I like finding out why things happen, why things are the way they are, how something was invented, where the word's origins come from, etc. And I think to put all of that together, that is also nonfiction and a very enjoyable sense of nonfiction. I feel like people nowadays low-key give, I keep saying low-key, high-key give nonfiction a bad name. It's either, people are like, sari self-help books hoti hai, and it's all your Ankur Warikhoos and, that guy who wrote Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Mark my... Atomic Habits. My book is not like, I wanted to also show that non-fiction can be fun and funny and not give you a 5-point checklist at the end that do this and it will fix your life. Like, this is an exploration. It happened to fit well to non-fiction, and I like the medium. I quite enjoyed writing it.
Uh, so, which means that in many ways, no Ferraris were sold writing this book.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
also, what is that book? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. No, yeah. So it's poor writer, poor writer.
poor writer, poor reader. Okay, there you go. Right, makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, having gone through the book and also looking at some of the other coverage it's received, a lot of people are calling it a lot of things. But I was thinking, is it like a personal history of the internet for yourself? Is it kind of like an autobiographical account?
Yeah.
Or is it something more autoethnographic? If you were to put it in 2 sentences, what would you say the book would be?
And I like autoethnographic. I might start using that to describe my book. But for me, this is just a non-fiction collection of essays about what it feels like to grow up on the internet and with the internet, and in many ways because of the internet. That's how I've been describing it to people. I've picked up themes that are the most relatable across people our age, in terms of like region or where they come from or what language they speak. I've looked at okay, this is far more than 2 sentences actually, but it's a broad look at what the Indian internet has done to us as a generation, and it's a reckoning with what it's done. I think autoethnography is a good way to look at it because it is autobiographical while also positioning myself as just one amongst this generation. So I am not the interesting story. An autobiography is essentially like one person's interesting story. I think our generation has had an incredibly interesting story, and this is that.
Perfect. Very well put. Thank you so much. Also, the fact that it is not 2 sentences means I think it's not in many ways ready for Instagram Reels.
Yeah, it's
but
not.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Let's move away a little bit from this. Correct. So, with regards to what it means for you as a writer, correct. You were talking about how the book is accessible in style, how it is non-fiction, and in many ways. The more you read the book, the more you realize it's bridging what academic research is trying to say and what mainstream writers have been trying to say. So when you think about something like the internet, it's impossible to ever speak in a detached fashion about the internet. Correct? So considering that your book's called The Love-Hate Relationship with the Internet, how did your love-hate relationship kind of manifest while writing this thing?
First of all, thank you for that comment about how it bridges the space between academic writing and popular writing. Aditya has done a lot of incredible academic work about the internet, and there's his book here, which is about gaming, but also he's been telling me about some of his research, which is not published yet, which is also very interesting. So academic validation from you means a lot to me. I've also always loved academic validation. I love when professors say, good question, and yeah, it's just a very nice feeling, so thank you for that. In terms of this, I don't think it's an unbiased perspective, and I think that's where this deviates a little from a journalistic history of the internet. Feeling and emotion, and hence bias, is an essential part of the foundation of this book. And I'll repeat an anecdote I was telling you before, which is that yesterday I was doing a book signing at a bookstore here, and a reader who came in a little late but spent some time talking to me told me that, you present a very positive look at the internet. Like, the book ends with a sense of, I love the internet even though it's done bad things to us. And then he asked me, do you think you have Stockholm syndrome of the internet? And no one's ever asked me that, but it can be true, because I cannot divorce my feelings about it from the way I write about it. And which is also why it's, I like to describe it as a story more so than a factual lived account. Everything that happened here is true, but this is also my perspective at it. I forgot your question. What was your question?
No, thank you. Thank you for thinking through that. My question was more basic. When you were writing it, did you feel the love-hate with the internet while writing it?
Yes. There was also that essential idea of having to stop consuming so that I could write the book, because the more I consumed online, the chapters were getting longer and longer. And I wrote this book last year, which means that it's taken 1.5 years for it to be published. So I had a sense of stress about me, which is that which parts of the internet can I pick up and talk about that will be relevant 18 months down the line? And A lot of trends come and go, a lot of examples come and go. People don't even talk about the boo-boos anymore, though that was just like 4 months ago, right? So the exercise of having to pick and choose and place my bets on what parts of the internet I think would stay relevant, that was a deeply stressful exercise, and I hope like people still think that the examples used here are relevant. There was that, and obviously the feeling of my phone constantly pulling me away from the book. While I was writing it, I didn't have so much time to make my reels or to do other things, and I try not to worry too much about follower count. I would have gone insane if I started caring about numbers in that sense. But there is numbers that fly around in the publishing space sometimes, that if you have itne followers, your book will be a smash hit even before it comes out. So that sense of pressure still existed. I tried to stay away from it, but it's unhealthy, and that's where I think the hate part of the love-hate relationship comes in. But I got so many of my ideas through the internet, and it is about the internet, and I love it, and that's where the love part of it also comes in. So I was very conscious that dedication is a very conscious choice, because that is also a part of the writing experience for me.
Thank you so much for that, right? I mean, it makes sense. Are you writing for the people who are following you, or are you writing so that more people follow you?
Yeah.
Or are you writing for where you're getting ideas from, or are you writing to get more ideas? I mean, there's no answer to these things, right? So that allows me to then probably ask a question that most people who have read your book want to ask, right? So in the book, you have these 8 chapters and 8 themes and ideas that you very nicely have sorted out, right? The ask me anything, the 15 seconds, what's in my bag, all of those things, right? So how did you decide these were the 8 themes that you wanted to focus on, or the broader 5 themes that you wanted to kind of connect with?
I'll tell you the code words for all the chapter drafts that are there in my Google Drive. The first one is called identity. The second one is called love. The third one is called consumerism, which is what's in my bag. The fourth one is called anonymity. Then there's privacy, there's knowledge, there's fame, and then there's representation. I tried to take up very fundamental core values of the human existence that have been transformed in one way or the other by the internet, and then to dedicate every chapter to one of those fundamental core values. Someone asked me, why is there no gender chapter? And I think that's also an important question. Why these themes and not other themes that also matter? Why is there no politics chapter, for instance? And I feel I wanted things that people don't have clear stances on. Like if I'd ask you, like, what is your stance on gender equality? That's a one-liner statement that you can give. I'm a feminist. I can do that, right? What is your political stance? I can tell you who I vote for. But if I ask you what you think about privacy, that is not a question a lot of us even take the time to figure out for yourself. What does fame mean to you today? What is your relationship with consumerism? So I wanted to take more complex values that I feel deserved 10,000 words each to even be delved deeper into, and ones that people feel and think about from time to time, but not in a holistic way of this is my relationship with this value. I also wanted things that would not alienate any section of the population. So these are all very universal in that sense. Something like gender or something like politics, I feel also gets alienating for people who don't belong to your country or don't belong to your region or are not consumed with the media that you're consumed in. So I think there was that sense of wanting it to be a little universal. And I think people are relating to it because it allows you to not just understand my view of looking at it, but to use that as a jumping off point to find your own perspective and opinion about it also. So there was a desire to let people also do some figuring out for themselves. And I'm glad it's come through in the book.
So would it be then all right for me to ask, how do these 8 ideas, the code words now, how do they speak to you, considering that you're on the internet as well?
I mean, I can tell you about them. So every chapter starts with an anecdote from my life, and that's a very core anecdote. It's my writing style to have that come back at the end of the chapter and sort of have a full circle. So I tried to think about impactful incidents that have happened to me and dig deeper to see what value was underlying them the most. There's that instance about how a picture of me is available for purchase on Getty Images, which I think is a very violative thing. And also, I don't make any money off of it, and it's selling for 23,000 rupees. So I think the things that I feel very strongly about and very wronged or passionate about that I also think can then be used as a point to talk about the foundational value that I want to talk about. That's how I picked these specific things. Like I wanted that incident to jump off. And yeah, like these things are also interesting to me. I feel like I am not capable of writing about something or talking about something that I don't fully enjoy in that moment and I want to delve into. So there are some things that don't interest me right now or don't interest me as much as these things. So I tried to pick the ones that I felt the most excited about, because that's the only way you can write a book. Like 10,000 words about one thing is a very, very long time to research and write about one thing. And you'd know, right? How do you pick a theme for your book? It has to be something you feel capable of writing at length about. So I try to find those. And that also leaves me with some material that I can write in a later book or in later essays that I would want to do maybe in the future.
Thank you so much, right? I mean, for all of us who are probably hoping to put down a book together, maybe a couple of years from now, I think writing is always a labor of love, right? I mean, as you rightly said, and there's so much that goes into writing those 10,000 words for a chapter, but then that chapter has to fit into the bigger jigsaw of how it all kind of connects. So thank you for that. So that brings me a little bit to the next bit. Among the 8 ideas, there's a very conscious choice of sorts not to connect to any of the subcultures on the internet. I mean, you don't, I'm not saying it's not in a bad way, but you don't look at gaming per se, or A, because I work with games, but B, also you don't look at, the music kind of subculture that goes with it, the many music subcultures, or books and, all things, even something like Goodreads and all of that. You're not looking at any of these. You're rather looking at more meta ideas. How did you make that choice?
I think that's specifically what you said right now and something that I said before. This is not actually a learning book. Like, it's not, let me tell you about, it's not a information giving book. It's about going through, or almost like a confessional way to look at things that have happened to us and then put them into perspective. So for me, going into, and I've done that when I wanted to. Like, there's a whole chapter about quizzing. Like I said, there's that whole anecdote about tote bags that is just there. There's a Club Penguin anecdote that people who weren't on Club Penguin might not entirely relate to. There's a mention of fan fiction. I think all my readers are fan fiction readers though, but there are some people who might not specifically relate to that part of things. So I think I have dropped those in when I feel like they add to the point I'm trying to make. But this is essentially a philosophy book also. So for me to I had to make that choice to not go too deep into specific subcultures, but to look at the same laws that govern our engagement with all of those subcultures. So if I talk about, love on the internet, then regardless of whether that love finds you in a, in terms of someone who's your gaming partner or someone who's your quizzing partner, someone who's liking the same music as you, love is still the same emotion. So I think for me to find those lowest common denominators was sort of more imperative than going too deep into subcultures. I also feel that subcultures require very, very specific knowledge and engagement with them that I'm not fully qualified to talk about. Like, I could have thrown in a gaming section, but I would never be able to write the book that, say, you have, or someone who's a heavy-duty gamer. I watch streams sometimes of people playing like video games just for fun. So, I mean, those people could write very good books. There's a very nice book out called The Great Indian Brain Rot by Anurag-Verma, who's also a writer in the same publication as I am, and we've done a few panels together. So he looks at caste and class dynamics on the Indian internet, and he's talking about, like Gujar reels and Jat reels that we get a lot of in North India, which is that, Jatta. I mean, I don't think that joke will fly here, but it's like a very specific subculture that he's in, and hence he can talk about. I would love for this to be a primer, which is actually how Anurag likes to describe my book, and for people to build on top of it with their own specific stories. Let this be a generalized account, a very broad philosophical account, and those subculture stories will be interesting. I would look forward to reading them when people write them. I'm looking forward to reading your book also and learn from it.
Okay, now the pressure is too much, but thank you. Okay, we will try and get a few more questions in. I think around 2:40 we'll do the Q&A with Ria. Would that be all right? Gives us all enough time to ask questions that we have as well. Correct? So on the book side, right, you were talking about your conscious choice you kind of made to maintain a balance between you know, trying to carry the rigor that academic writing kind of has, but also the accessibility that mainstream public writing kind of carries. So how did you arrive at that conscious choice to make that decision? And two, also the balance. Because there's a lot of pressure when you're writing to be the expert on what you're writing. Correct? You are expected to contribute philosophically, you are expected to contribute critically, and so much and so much. How did you find that balance?
I think first part I'll answer first, which is that how do we bring academic rigor when writing about something that is also a popular subject. I love reading academic papers. I have a literature degree, which also means I've engaged a lot with literary theory and with what people consider like the jargonistic side of literature, not so much books themselves, but what people say about books. So your Walter Benjamins and your Edward Said's. I've read, economic theorists. I've done my academic engagement and I've enjoyed it. And I've realized that a lot of regular readers are just not interested in that side of things. And I'm being honest. Academia is sort of an echo chamber where researchers are writing papers for each other, and once in a while something will blow up that 90%. Sorry, I feel like some academics in the crowd are a little offended. But if you look at, I'm being very honest, look at your numbers. If you don't write for the masses and speak to the masses, and research isn't popularly accessible, who is it really helping? Because I feel like people are doing such good work. My friends don't read academic papers, but they will listen to me when I talk about them, because I will, it's that thing of explain like I'm 5. And there's always that fundamental principle you can explain to someone even if they don't get the jargon. So I think for me, that is very interesting, because I've always been interested in a lot of things. I like trivia, I quiz, and you have to figure out how to get your hyper-specific interests across to people that you care about. So I love explaining things to people in a way that they will find funny, they will find relatable, because I feel like that's my purpose. Let's call it that. So for me, this book also is an extension of that attempt. I have read research, but if I start quoting the specifics of academic papers, no one will read my book. And I want people to read my book because I care about this and I think these ideas matter. So it is important, I think, for the academics also to realize that they need to start writing for the people they are writing about. Varna aap hamesha observer lens mein hi reh jaoge. Like, there is no way you get to the people. People talk about this when you have upper class or upper caste people going to a tier 3 town and then like doing tier 3 to town bhi nahi hota, village, and then doing some research about the dynamics of women there, and that research is published in an academic journal in English that other English academics will read. What happened to the woman you researched on? I feel like that's also like a little bit of appropriation almost, and also irrelevant for the person who is actually your subject. For me, the subject of this book is me and people like me, so I'm writing for them in a language that they will understand, which also means that there are parts of the book that are also grammatically incorrect, because there's like memes thrown in and stuff. I had a lot of back and forth with my editor. And I was telling him, young people will understand what I mean when I'm saying this. Like, you're 35, you don't get it, but they will. So I think that accessibility was extremely important to me. There was also a second part to your question that...
I mean, the balance, right? How do you get that balance, right?
The balance between...
the research bit that you're doing and the accessibility that you're trying.
I think once I mapped out every chapter before I wrote it, so I knew the point I was going to make at the end of it. So the research is supportive, but the point is the ultimate goal. And I think then I had to give space to also what other people are saying about a topic, because this is not just my book. There's a lot of perspectives from other writers who sometimes I agree with and sometimes I don't. So to bring all of that in and use all of that as like stepping stones to get to the point that I'm trying to make, I feel like it all started falling into place once I had my pieces. Once you see the larger picture, you know how to arrange the jigsaw to do it. So that's what happened.
Thank you for thinking through that for us. I've never been more called out, both as an academic and as a 35-year-old. But there you go, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? So one of the slightly other things that through the book that found me very interesting, if those of you have seen the book and read the book, you might know that across various sections, there's this small power-like button that keeps coming across the bits, right? So I was wondering why it's there. So Ria, now that I have you here, I can ask you directly. I'm also hoping for some of you on your behalf as well. Is it like device for transition? Or is it like, okay, fine, you have read enough, switch off now? Or is it like, too much dopamine, thank you, stop for now, come back later? What does it kind of mean?
So section breaks often in books have a little dot or an asterisk between them. They're called dingbats, which I learned through the process of writing the book. And I wanted this book to not just be the ideas that are inside it, but a fun experience for readers. I like when I'm having fun while reading a book, not just from the text itself, but from things like what the cover looks like, or sometimes people put a nice texture to some parts of their cover that I really enjoy. I just feel like the reading experience is enhanced by the medium that's in, which is not just text but also the physicality of the book. I quote Marshall McLuhan multiple times throughout the book where I say the medium is the message, which is one of the, like, it's rule zero of mass comm and related fields. So for me, this is metatextuality the right word for that? Maybe. But just the meta-ness of having a book about never logging out and then just putting the log out button at multiple places throughout it was just fun as an idea. I always knew I wanted the dingbat to be something else, so we bounced around ideas for what it could be. And I think once we honed in on the title, this is also, by the way, like the 10th title that I thought of. My first 3 got rejected, then my publisher came back with like 4 that I didn't like. Then eventually this is a line we picked up from the book where it says one day we logged onto the internet and that then we never logged out, which is essentially the core of what this book is about. So to take that and pictorially represent it was important. When I was writing the book, I was also very conscious of form because I'm writing for chronically online people. So I wanted the book to sound like how scrolling feels. There's sometimes very dense passages that is a lot of information one after the other, which is how scrolling feels because you're getting a lot of information. But somehow people find it harder to get through when it's a book and they're okay scrolling past it, when it's a reel. So I wanted people to feel that overwhelm. And then the logout button comes and then there's perspective giving. So I think that a break was very important for me, and this became a nice pictorial medium. I like looking at it. I like people don't expect to see something like that in the book. So when someone's flipping through it in a bookstore, I like that they might be struck by why does this have logout buttons between it, and if that makes them pick up the book, I think that is still in service for a greater cause, which is me making money off of this. And it works, so it works.
Taking into account the greater cause here, right? All jokes aside, though, through the book you make all of these references. You're talking about Taylor Swift. You're talking about your friend having a breakup, and you talking through her. Talking her through it on Zoom, and all of the other things that's happening. You talk about a neuromancer. You talk about the cyborg. Then you talk about Manchester United. As an Arsenal fan, I've never been more happy. But among all of those things, all the references you're making, and the fact that you're talking about metatextuality and also the intertext that kind of comes in with all of this. How did you decide what references make it? Or what would be the relatable ones? Because the internet is about so many different rabbit holes. We keep going down rabbit holes which are our own personal journeys and nobody else's. So how did you decide that my readers will get this?
I think there's 3 parts to this answer, and I hope I make it through all of them because I tend to lose track of what I'm saying as I'm talking about it. But first, there's this thing of, like I said, the book needing to feel like scrolling or feel like the internet. And sometimes when you're scrolling on Instagram or Twitter, there's going to be a tweet that is a reference to something else. I love this one meme format, which is like neither this nor that, but a secret third thing. I love secret third thing. So there's, I think, one point in the book where in the chapter only I say that the internet was neither good nor bad, but a secret third thing. And someone who doesn't know the meme will not get it, but someone who knows the meme will be like, oh, that's a reference. It's like Captain America in Avengers, like I understood that reference. So I wanted people to get that sense also. How many of you here know Loss? The meme Loss? It's a very specific meme that only a very specific group of chronically online people get. So I'm glad there's fewer of you here. And I just had to go on a podcast where I made a loss reference, and then I had to give like a 15-minute breakdown of what loss is. But when you see loss in the wild, this is loss is also a meme. Like to recognize the meme is also a meme, or like Saddam Hussein hiding spot, right? So I wanted people to feel that, like, is this loss? So is this a reference? Was something I wanted people to feel while writing the book. So that's one. The second thing is, the fact that these are illustrative of the point I wanted to make. So then the point is more important, and the example or the reference is in service to that argument or that whatever thing I'm trying to push. And the third and final thing is, I feel like a lot of references that are online, sometimes if we don't get them, we don't make the effort of finding out. Like if I see a tweet about like anime and I'm not into anime, I'm just gonna scroll past instead of Googling what it is. I also feel there's a factor of class when it comes into play. Like if I make an English language reference to something I was watching when I was 6 years old, it is in the context of me having access to English language media, because I grew up in a kind of family who could afford me watching television, and I understood English because I went to an English medium school. So I was conscious that references are inherently also exclusionary, but I had footnotes and I had like explanatory paragraphs where I could actually provide context and explain those references. So I took that as a very nice segue for people to go into rabbit holes and hopefully learn more about the references that I'm making, instead of just doing that thing of scrolling past, because I don't look at anime, which is what I often do. So for me, that thing of maybe we can learn more about each other and about the media that we all consume was also important.
Correct. So you're trying to give us rhyme and reason for doom scrolling.
Little bit.
Little bit. Okay.
I
there
mean,
you
we
go.
are never locked out, so we know like we are all doom scrolling also. So might as well do something nice by doing it.
There you go. Right. So meaning to doom scrolling. There you go. No. Thank you for that. So now the big.
Hope scrolling. I think
Hope
we should make hope scrolling happen.
There you go. Hope scrolling. Let's manifest it.
Yeah.
Right. So now thinking about the book. Right. The first one's out. Correct. Sorry about the pressure on the first
Yeah,
bit.
the only ones.
The only one is out. Correct. So what next? Now that this one's out in the wild and
Yeah.
doing its thing.
If I have the time, I want to give a little anecdote. Okay, I think we have the time. I was at the Jaipur Literature Festival and I was giving an interview to a journalist, and they were asking me, now that you're done with the book, what are you doing in life? So I was like, I was doing a lot of reading for research while writing the book, so now I'm having a lot of fun reading for leisure. And I gave them a list of, these are 10 books I want to read, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, okay. He was writing side by side. And then he was like, okay, so what about your next? And then I told him the next book I'm going to read, which was, say, Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny. And then he was like, no, I mean the next one you're going to write. And it was something I wasn't even thinking of. It's in that moment, I didn't even think anyone would ask me about my next. And now I have to start thinking about it, because people are like, it's like you've just given birth and they're like, okay, which is what aunties often do, like, next one, let's go, So that is not a feeling I like having, because this book took everything out of me and I have no ideas. And I know it's uncool to say that there is absolutely no more work forthcoming from my end, but I'm exhausted. This was like an exorcism. And if you've seen those horror movies, even when the ghost comes out of you, you're just lying dead, because it was so exhausting, the process. So I'm a little empty right now, and I'm in the process of absorbing a lot of creative energies by speaking to readers, by having conversations like this, by listening to other writers and artists talk. So I'm in a learning space now. I will get ideas, because I have, sometimes you have a really good idea and you put it out and you're like, I will never get a good idea again. And that has happened to me so many times that now I know I will get good ideas again. So I am confident that I will get a good idea. And when I feel strongly about it, there will be a next book, but not right now. So you can just keep rereading this one again and again and again, because there is maybe shorter writing and like videos. I would like to explore other mediums, and the book I will save it for when I have something I care deeply enough about to write 100,000 words about it.
Perfect. So there you go, right? I mean, the time and patience and perseverance. Who knows? The second one might be better,
Are
right?
you
Whenever
saying
it
this
does
one's
come.
not good?
No, I mean, it's brilliant, but the
Thank
next
you.
can always
Thank
be
you.
better, right?
That's true. That's
right.
true.
Almost put my foot in my mouth with that one, right? Correct. So yeah, the final question before we open it up for the audience, because all of this is about the internet and all of it's about life with platforms and all of that. What part of the internet today kind of interests you?
I had a postscript at the end of this book that we took out that was about iPad babies and how uncomfortable it makes me when I'm at restaurants and like parents put YouTube in front of their kids' faces because the kid is just not able to read without it. I have a 2-year-old niece who by muscle memory can open her mother's phone, go to YouTube and put on like Coco Melon or whatever they are watching these days. So I'm interested in how younger people these days, younger people क्या बच्चे ही हैं, will grow up on the internet because it's entirely a different generation. And there's now this whole conversation about screen-free parenting and how that is also classist, because if you have the ability to afford a screen-free childhood, that means the parents are rich enough that one person does not work and has the choice to spend time with the baby, blah, blah, blah. So I'm interested in like the next generation. I'm also equally interested in our generation. I'm also currently looking a lot at this analog movement where people seem to be desiring a healthier relationship with the internet. Where it goes from here is something I would be interested to see. I have my own predictions for what might or might not happen, but let's see what happens. I would love to be proved wrong in what I think is going to happen. So I'm more in like a wait and watch sort of space, but I like that. I like the analog aspect. I like the young people aspect. And AI, obviously, I mean, it's not something I'm interested in. It's something you cannot afford to not keep track of because it might just revolutionize the world. So I'm looking at it in a very scared and pessimistic way and waiting to see what happens. There's like, it was my, can I curse? I'm allowed. It was like my fuck you to AI that मैं तुम्हें डालूंगी नहीं अपने book. There is like 1 or 2 mentions of AI. It's like, I'm not going to talk about it because it is not interesting to me. So maybe let's see where it goes. Maybe there's interesting AI or like AI for good, which I would like to see. And yeah, like those are the things I'm just keeping track of right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for answering all my questions.
Thank you.
And for not making me feel irrelevant at all.
No, I loved this. These are very good questions. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed this.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's open it up to all of you guys. Oh, we have a lot of hands. Sir, do you want to go first? And then we'll come to you next. Right? Okay.
Can we get a
Could we
mic?
get them a mic, please? So.
Thank you for taking this old guy's question. Young people actually have a lot more interesting questions. The one thing I love about young people is that they're very unpredictable. Okay, so I happen to be a physician, and I get questions from young people about love, physical intimacy, and those kinds of questions. I like to answer them with medical science and a little bit of fun and humor. However, when I see the title of your book, Never Logged Out, and all these questions about doom scrolling and things like that, I get worried. I said, how are these young people going to meet each other in person? And do we have hope for the human race to propagate itself? So I want to hear your ideas about this.
I have, that's an interesting question. And I have an anecdote in my book, which is someone quoting an anecdote where they were on a bus and they see 2 people in front of them, 2 young people, a woman and a man. Both of them are on dating apps. Both of them are separately on dating apps, even though they look approximately the same age and they could have maybe struck up a conversation in person, and both of them get off at the same stop and then walk off in opposite directions. So that sense of missed connection or missed socialization is something that I also feel younger people are feeling nowadays. There is, yes, rising conservatism in the world where a lot of younger people are also not having sex the way like older generations were numerically. But I think that's also due to what's happening around us. There's so much bad things happening. You consider other good things in life even worth it? Like, will there be a future 10 years from now? Like, should I even have kids if they're going to die? Is basically the question. So I think that is worth thinking about also. We exist in a world that's inhospitable. The responsibility of bringing a new generation or even cultivating families of our own is something that feels uncertain, because I don't want to love people if they're going to have a horrible life. So I think that's one way to look at it. What I do think now is that there's a shift towards people wanting to go analog. People are gathering more in real life. Physical events are taking back up. Stuff like this, like rising attendance at things like concerts, at things like reader clubs, supper clubs, etc., is being documented. So I have hope for people meeting each other offline. The love chapter in my book is just a I hate dating apps chapter. So I'm on your side, sir. I agree with you. And I hope people meet each other offline. It's hard to predict where these things will go, and I'm just one person. So it's also hard for me to categorically say that we can have hope for the generation or not have hope for the generation. But I will always have hope for the generation. And I think people will find their way to each other in real life instead of through devices.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's move on to the next one. In the meantime, please keep the numbers and track though, right?
Okay. Hi, Ria. So actually, I have a lot of questions, and I'll try to narrow it down to like one or two here, and maybe catch you later. So, so I know that because I follow you, green has been a very important part of your book, and actually, that's not related to my question. So my question, that's just to show that I follow you, I think. But so, but going off of green, so like you quoted, message. So the medium is the message, and to have jargons, to have these references is a very integral part of not just the medium, but not just the content, but also the form. But that makes me think that, like you said, lavaboos are not being talked about right now. Someone even saying slay right now is weird, and although that was so normal 6 months ago, right? So what do you think about the like relevance, if I can say, about the book, like say 10 years down the line? Do you think that this book is a very happening now book, or like what do you think about the form? Another one question. So this is something I would love to like really explore through audiences as well, and that's something you've mentioned as a thought experiment in your book. That is, can there be platforms which encourage cooperation and not competition? How is that possible through such platforms? Is something I would love to explore through these conversations.
I can talk about the first question because that's an existential crisis I now have all the time. Like writing about the internet by default can also mean that you have a very limited shelf life. And I know people say shelf life in a metaphorical sense, but book ki to literally shelf life hoti hai. Like how long will bookshelves be stocked with this book? How long will bookstores sell a book? I had a huge crisis while the book was being edited because we had conversations of TikTok coming back to India. And I was like, if TikTok comes, this book only talks about it in like one anecdote because we don't have it anymore. It's banned. If it comes back, it's going to revolutionize the social media landscape. So for me, I'm very conscious of trend cycles being short and hence examples also being short-lived. Like I said, I'm trying to pick up themes that are more psychological and philosophical and hence have lasting relevance. I think I also draw upon a lot of older psychologists and philosophers in order to add that greenness to my book. And I hope it stays on chess because I feel like tech shifts sometimes feel very fast, but they can also be really, really slow. Like look at how our attitude towards love has changed due to dating apps. It's taken like 1.5 decades for it to get here, right? So I think there are parts of the book and essays in particular that I think will still be relevant. I think the consumerism one is going to be relevant for a very long time. Post knowledge is interesting to see how AI is going to change that chapter. So I think it will be there, but it's something I think about a lot, and I have no definitive answer to that. The second one also, I think, is something I have no definitive answer to. I like to inherently believe that people are good people, and hence cooperation is our default and not competition. It's something you see a lot in societies that don't have scarcity mindsets or don't have zero-sum games that are going on. People inherently like to help each other. It's how families work. It's how um, colonies work, like groups of people work. Ideally, a social media platform then is also a community and hence should also work on the same rules. Why does it not work like that is because we are vying for those limited likes or to be the top person, most followed person on that platform. So I think it's actually a lot of personal transformation required for those platforms to become cooperative. Would be interesting to see where we go from here. I have no definitive answer for that.
Thank you for those lovely questions. Yes, please. Yes, please. And after that, if we could get the person in the green kurta, please.
Okay, firstly, Ria, I loved your book, especially the It's Complicated chapter. The orange anecdote has still remained with me. Okay, to my question, there's one chapter in your book where you talk about, you know, how you predicted certain trends and that happened, and like a big newspaper had covered it as well. I just wanted to know what are your predictions currently, because even while reading the book, I was wondering what is she predicting right now. So.
I can say it, and we can see if a year from now these things work out or not. I don't think the AI shift will be as radical as we are thinking that it is going to be. We're already seeing a pushback from platforms like YouTube, etc., who betted big on AI-generated content and are now realizing that people actually want to see art that's made by other people. So I think there's going to be, at least in terms of content creation or the kinds of things we see, a slower movement. How it happens in the workforce is a separate conversation that I don't have too much insight on also because I'm not part of like the corporate workforce, so to say. Secondly, I think this movement towards analog, blah, 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 is a little bit of a trend. Because I'll give you an example. I'm thinking of writing an article about this, but I'm happy to like share it here also. There's a supper club in Delhi that prides itself on being no screens, and they meet every weekend. And somehow after every meeting, there's a reel of it. So who made it? If it was no screens, right? I feel there's a performativity to still centering the internet in those no internet conversations. When I'm reading as a, like I'm thinking, oh, I'm not on my phone, you know, I'm reading. It's that thing of when you put an Instagram story saying, I'm off Instagram for a few days, call or text me. So I think there's that air to me. I would love to believe that it can be long lasting. And I feel like this is the seed of something long lasting, but as of now, it's not going to happen. Also because how are you going to get a job without LinkedIn? Creative professionals cannot get a job without Instagram or without Twitter. Journalists cannot get stories out there without Twitter. We've hinged so much work on social media. Getting out of it is a matter of privilege right now, and not a lot of people can afford to do it. So that is there. I think the gender space in India is going to become extremely toxic. There was going to be a gender chapter that I decided not to write. I'm in some Reddit groups that are Indian men only. And the kinds of conversations that you see from younger 13, 14-year-old boys who have consumed too much Andrew Tate, and a lot of like, you now have Indian Andrew Tate versions also, right? And they're like, women only want alimony. Like, you're 13, like, you know, like it's that. I think there's a potential for it to get really, really bad. And if you look at the kinds of cases where we've seen outblown internet abuse of women, look at what happened to Rebel Kid. Look at what happens every time Divya Bazin, and listen, she sometimes does like dumb shit, but I feel like the volume of what she gets back is insane. Look at how publicly women are being treated. I think shame has grown on the internet in horrible, like somehow everything merits public shaming, and it's often women at the receiving end of it. I feel like how we look at women in internet spaces is changing, and I would love to be wrong, but it looks like a pretty bad change right now. Hopefully it gets better, I'm not sure.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Very well thought through, especially the difficult bits. And yeah, that's an almost Oprah Winfrey-like question, though. Predict next. What
Where
will
do you think we go from here?
Right, there you go. Perfect. So a couple of questions. We had one at the back. Do you want to go? And then we'll come to the one, we'll come to you right at the front.
I have a question for the organizers. Are we doing a book signing sort of sitch after this? Or can I'll just be around, so if you have questions that you aren't fully formed, there is a book signing. I don't know. Okay, amazing. So if there is, you can come talk to me afterwards also. Take your time, formulate your questions, and then we can have a chat. But yeah, there was
Hi.
someone who had the...
Yeah, right at the back.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You first, then. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes. So, Ria, you kind of mentioned about the follower metric influencing products that people put out there.
Yeah.
Like, influencers are getting into all kinds of things. They're entrepreneurs now, writers and
Yeah.
filmmakers,
Yeah.
and it is taken,
Yeah.
it is welcomed in the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
The other route of sort of putting your products out there and then getting fame through that is a much longer route. So as an artist, I would really appreciate absolutely honest and unfiltered opinions about how big the gap is between the product first traditional approach versus the branding first approach. Do you think all of us would have to become influencers at one point?
I think that's a difficult question because I also didn't stand up enough when that choice came to me. I realized in 2022 that if I wanted writing to be my career, and I often look to America for inspiration as to where industries are going because they're like 3-4 years ahead of us in terms of internet culture. So when I looked at journalists starting to do videos and get into podcasting, etc., I thought if I also want to make a career in this, maybe better to have that audience for myself. And that's when I started making short form videos. So when that choice came to me, I'm telling you upfront, I chose the becoming a creator sense. Maybe it was easier for me because I also like talking. Like I don't have that hesitancy of, you know, sometimes I speak to authors now and they're like, you know, like it's uncomfortable to be on camera because often people who are artists or writers are introverted and don't really want to put themselves as people out there, would prefer to just put their out there. Maybe even as a personality thing, it worked out for me because I'm okay being there publicly. I would still say if you choose to build a personal brand, something that has immensely worked out in my favor is that and I hate that term, but that my personal brand is still the ideas that I care about. Even when I'm doing video, I'm talking about the things that I also write about. I will sometimes do video narrations, like explain my essays to the audience or to bring in trivia, etc., which gets me the kind of crowd and readership that I know I write for. So writing is still my medium. This becomes the funnel. For me, it is working out. I might not have been able to get a book deal this early, and at this stage, had I not had the following I had, I'm able to command a higher price for my work also, because I can say I have a definitive market that, like, people want to read my work. I can see the merit, and it's such a tough space to be in now. There are cases of very good journalists who don't even have social media and are writing books about the things that they care about, and then they sell. The Ramnath Goenka Award recently went to a friend of mine, Neha Dikshit, who's written The Many Lives of Saida X, which is a wonderful book. She has like 2,000 followers, and they're all just pretty much us, right, friends. Sometimes it works out, I'm saying, but it's a hard market, so you might have to be extremely exceptional to stand out. So if you're able to build your own market, it's always a nice thing to have. But I can see the compromises people have to make sometimes. So that would not be my advice, but I'm just telling you why I chose what I chose.
Like you said, right? So in today's world, the Gen Z population is, it's both open-minded, but at the same time, we also have rising polarization. So, how do we balance that, and how do we make these, folks like actually log out and get into the offline world? And how do you think your book is going to help that cause?
When I was writing the book, I had to log out, like I said, to write about it. But once I was done, I realized that fundamentally my opinion towards social media has changed. Like, my relation towards it has essentially changed because of the reckoning I had to do with the effects it has had on me, often non-consensually changing, me as a person. Like, that's what the internet has done. So I hope people who read it at least are able to contend with the largeness of what this force has done to us. If it makes them log out or nurtures like a desire to do more real life stuff, it would be my privilege to be the conduit of that. I've had people talk about how this has been their book to get out of a reading slump, and they've been in that slump because they're on their phones too much, and now they're reading more. So if more people do that, I would love that. Even if it doesn't happen, if they're still as online as before, but they're just using it in mindful ways, thinking about what the internet has done to them, I think that's good also. The idea is to strike a healthy balance, and a healthy balance looks different for everybody, depending on where they are. I would enjoy it if it makes people log out, is what I'll say.
Let's make it a social experiment. You buy the book and let us know what happens.
Screen time should be down by 15% after reading the book.
Otherwise, you'll end up with lots of returned copies. Don't promise stuff like that. But yeah, last question, please. Yeah.
So, sorry for inconvenience. We just will be taking 2 more last questions, okay? You'll be you're only, or you?
So I'm yet to read the book, but my friend borrowed it. My friend bought it, and we sort of had a massive discussion on the second chapter about love. But that's just one of the things. But as you said, you're very curious about how our generation and the generation after is going to explore internet. And one of the rising trends that we're observing is reducing presence to performance. So essentially, what would be subcultures of their own and people would explore on their own have now been reduced to what they look like on Instagram, which is perhaps the most accessible form of short form content. And you're there, so you know what the space is like from a creative perspective, but also from a consumer. And I want to know, how does one maintain their authenticity when internet is so ubiquitous? Like you said, you need LinkedIn for a job, you need Instagram when you're creative. But because there is so much that you want to be in terms of the different aspects of life that you're getting to notice in the world, how do you ensure that whatever thoughts are there, what do you like? Okay, do you really like black coffee, or are you doing that because your favorite character drinks black coffee? As the most simple example, like, how do you maintain authenticity? How do you ensure that you have a presence and you're not just performing to gain connection at best or at worst followers on the internet?
I ask myself this all the time, and very honestly, it's every time I make a reel, like, I care about what I'm talking about, but sometimes you're like, am I just posting this because people will also resonate with it, and hence I'll get more followers or something, or they'll see me as a certain type of person, etc. I can tell you, as someone who's fallen into the performance trap, it feels shitty, right? Like, you know you're lying. I don't see this as a hame duniya badalni hai sort of thing. Like, performance has always happened in society. People like to look differently. You had, even when the Brits were here, like we were colonized, you had Indian people dressing a certain way to what we call the brown sahibs, right? Like, you're trying to show an affinity to a certain thing so that they approve of you. I feel like that kind of performance has always happened, will always happen. It feels horrible is what I'm letting you know. Like, sometimes I tried to make a reel once about, like, do a writing day, like 1 day of writing my book, and उस दिन मैं writing करी नहीं क्योंकि मैं तो reel ही बना रही थी पूरे दिन. So I think that hollowness is something all of us should feel and stay with. That's something I also talk about in the What's in My Bag chapter, where I talk about how people are so much more worried about what they're signaling. Like, I'm only an artist if I have, you know, Birkenstocks and linen pants and stuff like that. I'm only a fitness person if I'm wearing a matching set and putting a Pilates selfie of myself or something. So I feel we feel the performance and we don't like it because we are inherently sincere beings. I'm always like pro-human and like wholesome human person. I think if individually you feel that, you will naturally, like, I have naturally molded my existence to a social media existence to a way that feels less performative for me. Find your own healthy space. It's important to put your work out there to, you know, we are serious on LinkedIn, for instance. That's also performance. What I'm proud to announce, ऐसे थोड़ी बोलती हूँ मैं real life में. But sometimes you have to do it. But when you don't have to do it, then don't do it. That's what I'd say.
Last question, please. We do have time for other questions after the event's over. Ria will
I'll
be
be
around.
around.
Right? So one last question, please. Thank you.
Yeah, hi Ria. So just about trying to building up on the answers that you gave a little while ago, where you talked about, you know, being out there in the public sphere as a social media personality is kind of a necessary evil, right? Because you want to be a writer, it furthers your furthers your career. But then at the same time, there's this conversations we're having about AI and consent and what Grok had been doing recently with women and, you know, pictures. How do you, as a woman, sort of strike a balance between putting yourself out there, but also like, hey, I don't want to put myself out there because anybody can sort of take agency of my picture. I think that's something that all of us have to face, because let's be honest, you put something on the internet, it's there forever. So then do you stop posting, but then it's also fun, but it's also kind of needed for your career? How do you find a balance between that? That is what scares me about AI the most. It sort of like makes you restrain part of your personalities because of that.
I'm going to give a very horrible answer to this that is going to ruin everybody's mood, and your takeaway from it will not be that this was a fun session, this was like a doomer session, but I'll go for it. I think women's bodies have always been up for public consumption and public comment. Even before the internet and before Grok, you dress a certain way at a family event, you're called a certain type of person. You dress a certain way at publicly, men will look at you, sometimes they will touch you, like bad things will happen. I feel like we all go through it as a rite of passage, and we either find a way to make peace with it or we rage against it. I feel like it's the same thing with AI. Like, the visibility part of it is something that is playing positively to me right now, and I also don't see it as a necessary evil. I though enjoy it. I'm having a good time being visible online, and it's deeply uncomfortable that that space is becoming less and less safe, and like I told her, it's going to maybe even become less safer going forward. I feel that I take it as my responsibility to create an essentially healthy space. I think my account is a very, very positive space where there is absolutely no discussion about physical appearance or talking. I don't do makeup, like brand collabs, for instance, for that reason, even though that's the most lucrative field that's out there. Like, I don't want physicality or appearances to be just part of the conversation. I don't want people to care about how I look at all, because the second that's the conversation, it goes off in a different way. So I think we do what we can. We hope other people create that space also. I am involved in some policy aspects that are trying to do something about it on a legal level. Thankfully, our government has very randomly actually stood up against it this time, which I like enjoyed. They did get Twitter to take down offensive imagery. Hopefully, people will realize and like we can do something better about it. But it's like the world is unsafe for women always is, and we can only strive to make it better as much as we can on our part.
Thank you so much, Ria, for that. Yes, difficult thoughts, but really important to talk about these. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming to HLF and for this wonderful conversation. Thank you, guys. You have been amazing as well.
Thank you, Aditya, for all those lovely questions. I had a very good time. One of the best sessions I've had, and I've done so many Knit Fests now. You will enjoy.